Hey, my love. Welcome to episode 99 of the Fully In It podcast. Have you ever thought about what life would be like if you didn't have to do it completely alone? If you were able to question that part of you that says you have to do it all, you're the only one who can do it, it's all on you, and you had other people to share in the journey with you and support you along the way. I think so many of us women, we come into adulthood with this idea that we have to be super independent, that it's not good to ask for help or to look like we don't have it together. And the role that this is especially prominent in is motherhood. If you are a mom or you're just a parent in general and you're listening to this podcast, you know what I am talking about. So often in our culture today, we are expected to be able to do it all and to do it well, to do it perfectly, and to not need help. But this is the farthest thing from the truth. In history past, women had a tribe of other women to support them, to encourage them, to carry the weight. And our society looks a lot different now. You may not have that where you live. You may not have a whole lot of community in person. And so what are we supposed to do? This is why I have always felt so passionate about creating community for women, to have one another to truly lean on, to learn from, and to feel supported on their individual growth journeys. And so I'm so excited to share two women's stories with you today that I think are going to speak so much to you. On today's episode, I have Tricia Pickren and Gina joining me. Now, both of these women were in past rounds of the Purposeful Moms Club, which is my group coaching program for women who want to feel happier in all of the roles that they fulfill. You want to lead your family with purpose and joy. And this is the space where you learn how to carry all of that. And Tricia was in the very first round of the Purposeful Moms Club that started in September 2020. And Gina was in the second round that began in April 2021. Now, the really funny thing is that in my community, I always assume that everybody knows everyone because we're pretty tight-knit. And by the way, if you haven't gotten involved in this community yet, what are you waiting for? We are waiting for you. And so we got on the call to record this, and I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, do you two know each other? And they didn't, but they did have friends in common because of the way this community works. You know, there's so much friendship and collaboration and just like this lifelong connection that develops from being in one of these spaces that I lead. And so I know that as you listen to their stories, you're going to feel so connected to both of their journeys in motherhood as women in the world who have really gone through a lot on their individual motherhood journeys, and both of them have actually started businesses after they went through the PMC. Now, this is not a guarantee that comes out of the Purposeful Moms Club that you're going to start a business afterward. You certainly can if you want to, but for whatever reason, there is something about the Purposeful Moms Club that you go through it and you overcome the things that have been holding you back for like the last decade, right? You start shifting your habits. Your mindset becomes so much more empowered, and you actually have the space to pursue your dreams and what lights you up, and that is the magic of the PMC. So we actually don't talk a whole lot about business in this episode, but we really get into the identity, the shifts that both of them experience, and ultimately how this work has changed their lives. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and jump right in. Welcome to Fully In It, a show for visionaries, leaders, entrepreneurs, and those who know they are called to so much more. Join me, Kate Saffel, a mindset expert, multiple six-figure business coach, and a woman on a quest to show that anything you desire to create in your life is truly possible. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in all areas of your life. Join me for regular inspiration and encouragement to follow your intuition, lead with integrity and heart, and live boldly every damn day. So today on the podcast, I have Gina Bauer and Tricia Pickren joining me to just share more about what it's been like for them growing in motherhood, pursuing their own self-care, their path, their journey, as they are also growing businesses and raising their families. So Gina and Tricia, I am so glad to have you on today. Welcome.
Thanks, Kate. Happy to be here. Yes, me too.
So, I know in our community, we were just talking before we hit record that in this community, it so feels like we all know each other. And I hope, if you're listening or you're watching this, you feel so connected to all of us in this community, because that's what we're trying to create. But if you don't know Gina or Tricia yet, Gina, would you go first and just tell everyone a little bit about you?
Well, hello. I'm Gina Bauer, and I'm calling in from Madison, Wisconsin. And I have 3 little ones over here who are 8, 6, and 2 now. And I feel like I'm in this exciting phase of life as a 38-year-old, just finally releasing and confronting some of my limiting beliefs and patterns that I have been holding on to, and just keep getting deeper in the layers. And and also feel at peace with being in a phase of just slowly and sustainably growing my new business, and giving myself permission to have it be what I need for this season of life, and to allow myself to pivot with that. And having done that, I did the PMC with Kate a year and a half ago. And during that time, I was quite overwhelmed and having a hard time. And I think a lot of the tools that Kate gave us and the community that was built there really laid some powerful seeds for being able to jump out of the gates and bloom, and also be in whatever season I needed to be, whether it was like pruning or, fall, winter, spring, summer. It's always, there's always something. So I just want to, before we go any further, just to say thanks to Kate and the community for the support and helping me get to where I am today, and to be able to see my highest self and embody that in a different way than I knew was possible.
Yeah, yes. Well, and I cannot wait to hear about all of those seeds that you have been germinating, and just to kind of catch up with you, because it has been a year and a half. And, before we jump to Tricia and have Tricia introduce herself, I just have to say this, Gina, you stood out in my mind because you were the one in the PMC who was so persistent about working on those limiting beliefs. You were so open and receptive to coaching, to change, and then applying it. And that really stood out to me, because doing mindset work and changing the way that we have always been, right? Like you just said, you're 38. You think we hold thoughts and beliefs for decades. We see ourselves a certain way. And so that willingness to change and grow was so huge. It was super awesome to see you do that. So Tricia, tell us a little bit about you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Tricia Pickren. Gosh, Gina, I really love what you said about just getting to a point where you know that you're in a season, right? And that you are okay being where you are and doing what works for you in that season, knowing that it's going to change. And I feel like that's just been my story. And so when I was in the first round of PMC with Kate, I had done so much inner work already. and had gone through some training to do what my business is now, but I was just overwhelmed and floundering and so overwhelmed by motherhood. I had a really rocky introduction to motherhood, and I have two little boys now. One's 5 and one's turned 1 a couple weeks ago. And I was just so overwhelmed and didn't know. I feel like I was treading water. And at the end of that time with Kate, I had like launched my business, got pregnant again, then paused my business. And here we are again, like 2 years later, and I've picked it back up, and it's everything feels really good in this season. Like life is still what it is, like it's still hard and good. And I feel like I just keep coming more home to myself and pulling back those layers of who I really am, and yeah, just stepping into home.
I love that so much. And, Tricia, we talked about this privately maybe like a week or two ago. I found your original intake, like your assessment that you did for yourself when you first joined the PMC, and that would have been August 2020, because you were in the same round as Laura Grant, who was also recently on the podcast. I remember reading over that and just thinking, oh my gosh, she created everything she said she was going to do. And it was really all inner, right? It had to do with who you were being in your roles, your identity, and really the way that you saw yourself, and how you wanted the world to see you. And now, 2 years later, I just see you as such a leader. Like now you're leading other people in those same practices that you were developing.
Well, I think I recognized, I didn't know it then, but like subconsciously, I knew that it had to start with me, right? Like I knew that if I fixed this, me, that the rest of it would spill out. And it has. Like, you're right. I cried when I saw that list because I am every single one of those things now. Like, I can confidently say, I did this.
Yes.
Like, I am this person today.
Oh my gosh. It's so, so huge. So, okay, I want to take both of you back. I want you to tell me or think back on if there was like a specific moment or memory that you have in early motherhood, right? You both talked about like that overwhelm, that feeling like you're stuck, you're spinning, you're all those phrases that we use to describe like this thing that is motherhood. And we're like, what the heck is going on? Was there a particular moment for either of you where it felt like a line in the sand where you're like, okay, this has to change, and you felt like ready and willing to make those changes?
I do. I do have a moment. I remember thinking, this isn't working. Like, how I am living is just not working. And I need to change something. And I was just so exhausted and sick and had no idea how to change anything. So my thing was I quit drinking. I was like, this is a thing I can change right now. And I just stopped drinking. And from there sat with, because I'd been using alcohol to numb, like absolutely had been using it to just cope and not be in my life because I didn't want to be in my life. And so I just quit and I sat in that discomfort of like having nothing to numb and really having to like look at my life like straight in the eye for the first time since my son was born, and being like, wow, I really hate this and I really don't like who I am. And like that line in the sand for me was just like that moment where I was like, I have got to change something, anything. And everything like rippled out from that one decision.
Yeah, it's really wild how like you almost get to a point where you're just fed up with things and you're like, I'm done. And you chose a habit shift that created such a ripple. And that's typically what ends up happening, right? Like if we can just make one change, it then becomes the catalyst for a whole ripple effect of changes in every area of our lives. What about for you, Gina?
Had a lot of different moments through the past almost 9 years of being a mom. When I went into motherhood, I envisioned like okay, I had a photography business at the time, and I envisioned, okay, I can, work part-time, be with them part-time, and just like kind of do it all. And, I didn't adapt to my shifting needs and values, my family shifting needs and values. And so I essentially burnt out from like keeping things the way that they were when I had 0 kids, and then 1 kid, and then 2 children. And then my husband got this different job and realized like, I don't want to work outside of the house because I feel like it's taking me away from the kids, and I'm not there for them in the way I want to. I'm so miserable. I can see it impacting them. So I want to stay home with them, and we'll make some choices in the meantime to like make that happen. And so I did that, and that was supportive to just kind of like get our rhythms and figure out how to cook and figure out, that's where I think that's around the time I found Kate, and it was like, okay, minimalism, that's what I need. I need, okay, less stuff. That's going to fix it all. Like, okay, me at home, that's going to fix it. And, I've had all these different phases where I felt like, okay, I'm miserable, and that's not fair to me. That's not fair to my kids. The final line in the sand was then when I joined PM, or the next set of, assessing things and realizing things weren't working, was then when I did join the PMC. And I knew that I had been interested in coaching with Kate for a while, but I was like full of excuses because, I couldn't justify it on the budget, or like I wasn't ready. I had too many unique circumstances that like weren't relevant for like sharing in a group, or, like I felt like I had done all this inner work, and like, why weren't things working? Like, why wasn't I happy as a mom? Why wasn't I happy as a mom with them at home? Why wasn't I happy as a mom with me working? And yeah, and so actually when I was able to join the PMC and like say yes to myself in a different way, that felt like a significant turning point of desire something different. And once again, we're going to do this and take different actions and try and get different results. And so part of that process has felt humbling for like, wait, but that didn't work. That didn't work. But also I've just come to like accept and be at peace with like, yeah, things are changing. I'm actively changing. My children are actively unfolding and having different needs. Like it like clicked that like, yes, I just can't be overly attached to what I think needs to be the thing, because yeah, just like mindset stuff is so powerful, and there's always going to be something. And so, okay, how are we going to come at this with like fresh eyes and being able to pivot rather than double down and stay in suffering a little longer than necessary?
Yes, yes,
That was a
yes,
long
yes.
answer.
I loved it though. I loved all of it. And I'm like, the hard thing for me is, being a responder. Like, I want to follow all the rabbit trails and I can't. It's so hard for me. But a couple things that you said I thought was so profound was this belief, like, or this like almost like self-judgment of like, I thought working would make me happy, or having my business, or I thought being completely home would make me happy. And like, why am I not happy? I keep changing all of these externals, but my inner state is still attuned to unhappiness. And it's almost like, what the heck is going on? And what I witnessed with you, Gina, is that I have like this memory for how you came into my world because it's so special to me. So like, I can remember the moments when we communicated and what that felt like and looked like on my end and what I saw. And so I remember, Gina, we did a consult in November 2020, and we talked, and you were like, I don't know, it's just not the right time. And I could tell you wanted to, but you were afraid. And then we talked again. And I think like January or February 2021, we did another call. And at that time it was, I don't know if I can. And then we were traveling. And I remember we were like on Anna Maria Island here in Florida. And I get like a message from you on Instagram. And you were like, I'm figuring it out. I'm advocating for myself. I'm going to join, and I'm going to find a way. And you did, and you problem solved, and you made it happen for yourself. And so seeing how you navigated those lines in the sand like you said, like I had a lot of excuses, but you got to a point where you were so ready to change that the excuses were no longer going to hold you back. And I think that's just so worth celebrating.
I was thinking about the process too of how long it kind of took me to like say yes to working with you, Kate, and was kind of having a chuckle about that because
Yeah.
I remember you saying like, all right, well, you've been hanging out at my front door and that's fine. You can get into for free. But like,
It was
and,
like, yeah. I
and
thought at the moment either saying that is going to be the thing that like helps her to commit to herself, or she's going to run the opposite way. It's either going to have two results.
oh yeah, I love a good gentle intervention. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's also, yeah, I see, Kate, how you are really empathic and loving and supportive of everyone. And then also, there comes a time where it's like, and I think you follow your intuition with this beautifully. There comes a time where it's like, all right, like just like the firm, like, all right.
Now's the time.
Yeah, now's
Yeah.
the time.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's always very intuitive because it has to be, because you ladies know when we work with other people, when we're supporting other people, even in guiding our own families, there's so much self-trust that has to happen, because otherwise our fear will always take over and then we won't catalyze the change in other people that we want to create. I wanted to talk a little bit about that, like unhappiness. What was your experience, at least initially, with motherhood and your like satisfaction with it? Because I feel like a lot of us were fed or given this like picture of motherhood, like it would almost be the thing that would change us, that we would be happy in it, that we should be happy in it. Tricia, what was your experience with that?
Did you see my face, Kate?
Yep. I know you have
Um,
things to say.
I do. I have a lot of thoughts on this subject. I had a really rough introduction to motherhood. My son was born at 32 weeks. I had severe preeclampsia and he was in the NICU for a month and he had colic and it was brutal. It was horrible. Like the first year and a half of his life was just pure survival. And I think that was around when the PMC started, right? Like, no, he was baby two.
Yeah, I think,
Was he
yeah,
baby
because you were
two?
kind of like, you were still dealing with some of the impact, but you were out of that baby stage.
Okay. And I just felt like I didn't like being like I thought I would love it. I wanted that baby and I thought I would just love being a mom and be so good at it. And then like I got all of these curveballs thrown at me and I was just like, I don't actually like this. This is terrible. And I just felt so lost and like I should be okay and I should be able to handle it and I should be more patient and a better mom. And I have a really spirited child and I didn't know exactly how to handle that either after all of the trauma of his birth and first year of life. And I just felt, oh, it was just so hard. I think I remember saying to you at one point, like, Kate, I don't like this. I don't like being a mom.
Yeah,
And I
I
know
remember that.
I was like, I like him. I love him, but I do not like being a mom. This just feels so heavy to me.
Yeah.
And now I have two of them because I did that again. Sometimes it still feels heavy, but I think that now I realize now that with Luca, I was just trying to escape what was. Like that situation just was. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was hard, but it wasn't good or bad. It was our circumstances. And I just didn't want to be in them. And I think my resistance to just being present in that made it so much worse. Because I got preeclampsia again this time. Like I have another fairly spirited child and Lucas still exists and is still himself. and it doesn't feel heavy to me anymore. Like, I don't think many circumstances in my life have actually changed, but I have, and they don't feel as heavy because I'm okay with being here now. Like, I'm okay with being in them and accepting them and moving with them instead of trying, like, there's just so much weight that comes with trying to not be in something that actually is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we create so much of our own suffering.
We really do.
Yeah. Yes. And we have a resistance to what is. And so when we can shift the narrative that's happening within us, I think for so many years for me, Gina, maybe you can relate to, like, I approached my life like all of you need to change. This circumstance, this house, this living situation, my marriage, my kids, like, you all have to change. It's not me, right? Almost like being a victim to my circumstances. And when I found the power of mindset work, I realized that I was the one creating my own reality. And I think, Tricia, like you found this too. It was like, okay, motherhood can either be, it's hard. We can just accept that there's circumstances in it that are challenging. And yet, what am I going to believe about it? How am I going to think about myself in it? And then what will that emotionally create in me? Because I can either suffer or I can feel grounded in this, right? Can I be my own well of peace? And you, right? Like, what were some of those mindset shifts that you implemented that helped you to create that?
I think I first had to be like, accept that these were my circumstances and that, like, let go of the fact that they were going to change. And I was like, okay, if they don't change, what can I still do? Like, what can I still have here in this? Like, can I still be a present mom? Can I still enjoy my son? Can I take away the, like, all of the shoulds, like the, this should be easy. He shouldn't be difficult. He, like, all of those things that I just kept putting on myself that I felt like should be, and just letting go of them and being like, what is? What can I still have here in this moment? What can I enjoy? Like, do I enjoy him? Like, yes, I do. Can I focus more on just enjoying the things that I enjoy and creating more of that instead of being like, oh, this is hard and I'm miserable and I want out of it.
Oh, yeah, totally. Right. Because it's like when we try to run away, it's like you can't really run away in motherhood.
No, just
Like these,
here.
yeah, they need us, right? So if they need us and we have to be here, then it's like I can shift what's happening in me. Gina, what about you? I saw you like nodding your head.
Oh yeah, nodding along. Yes to everything. With my first, yeah, she was colicky, and I just felt like I just couldn't quite like figure anything out. Like, I'd seen my like other mom, I was like comparing myself to other mom friends that like had their kids, and they like, they'd like be having these big parties, and they like, continue with their life as it was before. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. But actually, the particular circumstances I was in, that wasn't actually supportive to me. What I needed was less going and less pushing, and yeah, more acceptance and surrender to like, all right, this is what it is. And I think there were a lot of times in early motherhood that I felt like I didn't have any like power or choice. And right, because it's like my child and I'm on call 24/7. And and also like there were choices in there, like to say no to whatever invitation, or to say no to whatever thought was coming through my mind, or yeah, just the power in recognizing like the things that we can just surrender to and accept, and then the power and the other choices that we have that like are in our control, even though there are plenty of things that you know aren't in our control.
Totally. Yes. Right. And I love what you said about like, you had to stop comparing yourself and your particular set of circumstances to other moms that you would see. And this is something I see so much because, I work pretty much exclusively with moms. We see the external of what other women are doing. And on the outside, it looks easy. like, oh man, they've got it together, and like their house looks nice, and like their kids are mostly well behaved, and they've showered, and like, right, like we compare ourselves. We don't actually see what's happening internally. And the thing is it's like another mom might be comparing herself to you, Gina, right? She might be stacking herself up against you or you, Tricia. And so all we can do is like be responsible for ourselves and the choices we make for our families, and saying the no when we need to say no, and saying the yes when it is aligned with our values and our vision. What was it like for both of you to get more clear on what you value for yourself and for your families?
A relief. Yeah, and I see myself like still being very much in the process of like building the muscles to trust and strengthen my intuition, and to trust and turn inwards.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Tricia?
Yeah, I think like a relief resonates with me. Like
Yeah.
it was like, okay, so it doesn't really matter what these circumstances are because I'm okay. Like
Yeah.
I can stay grounded here. I can move our family in the direction that I want us to go,
Yeah.
because these circumstances aren't what's controlling me anymore. Like I'm not, that's my no. And that's not
Yes.
happening.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's like, in a nutshell, am I reactive or am I responding? Always have that choice between the two. Reactive is like, I can't help what's happening. And responsive is like Gina said, I'm listening to my intuition and I'm leading myself through this, which is just such a powerful and intentional shift. I would love to hear too, what is the habit shift, the change, the mindset shift, any of those that you are most proud of creating during your time in the Purposeful Moms Club? Like we've talked about the before. When you look at like where you're at now, what is the thing that you're like, you know what? I did that. Like I changed that.
I feel like I have a list.
Lay it on us.
I'm trying to think of like the one thing that really stands out. And I think it was like, there was one point where you were like, hey, you have this skill set. You're saying that someday maybe you want to start a business. Like, why aren't you doing that? And I
Yeah.
remember being like, well, why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
That was like my kick in the pants moment from Kate.
Everybody
And
gets one. So just, you know.
and I remember being like, well, what I want to do doesn't take away from my family, and it is in line with my values. And like, why am I not building this thing that I say I want to be? Like, I am the
Yes.
person to do it. Like, everything in my life has prepared me to be the person running this business, serving people in this way. Like, why am I not doing that? And I'm really proud because I'm doing that now. And
Yes.
one of my favorite phrases is, the knowing comes with the doing. And I think when I first started working with you, I was afraid to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was just not someone who really took action. Like, I was just kind of like waiting for things to happen for me, instead of being like, no, I can create that. And if it fails, that's cool, because I've learned something that I can apply to the next thing that I go do. And I've learned to really trust myself in making those decisions. And I know when I first started working with you, there was no trust. I did
Yeah.
not trust Tricia then. I didn't
Oh,
trust my inner voice. And I am a very intuitive person. And that trust wasn't there. And now I can see, over like working with you, and the mindset shifts that I've made, and just the action that I've taken in the last couple of years, that I can trust that voice now. Like, I know it is true. I know it is true to
yes.
me and my path, and for me, and the things that I am doing for me are for everyone else too.
Yes. Yes. And, you know, so for everyone who's listening or watching, Tricia, she did the PMC and then she came back last spring and joined Micro Mastermind. So I really got to see the way that she has grown over the last 2 years in your self-trust. And it's so profound because, I saw how even during Micro Mastermind, like you were facing a lot of life challenges still. It's not like life magically became rainbows and butterflies, but you held yourself differently and you kept showing up and trying new things. And all of it stemmed from this really strong well of self-trust and listening to your intuition. So it was very cool to see how much has shifted in you in those 2 years.
Well, I think during the actual PMC, the thought modeling tool was really supportive to me of like, okay, these are my circumstances, right? It's a neutral. This is just what they are. Yeah, seeing how I could go through and challenge my thoughts that I was having about those neutral circumstances, and yeah, and ultimately take different actions around them and have different results. And I think a big thing during the PMC, I was struggling with some frustration with like a lot of different relationships in my life, and they were all, like the most important people to me. And yeah, and so the combination of like accepting people for where they were at, and that like they're on their own journey just like I'm on my own journey, and humbly humbly learning the lessons each step of the way. Yeah, just that I could do some behind the scenes work and show up differently to those relationships. So the relationships didn't change, the circumstances didn't change, but I could be different in that exchange. Yeah, just that it takes one person to change the dynamic in a relationship. And so yeah, after PMC, that really illuminated some like boundary work I needed to do, and yeah, some self-care I needed to prioritize. And
Yeah, so huge. I mean, it's like, yeah, so many nuggets in there, but just having that awareness in your relationships, accepting people for who they are, but also that self-acceptance for where we're at, setting stronger boundaries, taking care of you so you can show up how you desire. And Gina, I noticed such a big change from like when we started the PMC to the end of it. So something really cool I noticed, and I hope it's okay for me to share this. We can edit it out. We can edit it out if we need to. One of the things I noticed in you from when we did your first consult call to the end of the PMC was the strength of your voice. The way you communicated actually changed. You were more confident by the end of it. You were advocating more for your own desires and your own needs. It was just like a very clear before and after that I witnessed in you.
And so it's not a coincidence that I was struggling with some of my relationships, because I had turned down the volume on like my inner voice. I had really made myself small so I could make enough room for everyone around me, because at the time I perceived that like their needs were more important. There were some challenging kind of like specific circumstances after some like losses in my life, and it just felt like there wasn't another way that I could navigate them, but there was. I could have a voice, and I could deal with the discomfort on the front end of saying no to certain things that was ultimately going to serve the relationship, because it was going to keep our relationship stronger, because my needs were going to be met. My needs were like, and then instead I wouldn't have some sort of like weird resentment towards the person that was my own doing, because I wasn't the one saying no when I needed to say no. And it wasn't their fault. Like, it wasn't any of these people's fault. I just wasn't. Yeah. So it was a nice shift out of some like, yeah, perhaps like passive aggressive or just like passive. I was just being like passive because I didn't have the confidence and the clarity to speak up at important turning points. Or even insignificant turning points of like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I would just like a minute longer to like decide what I want on the menu. I know we have like all the kids' meals taken care of, but what do I want, just like that pause to like connect with
Yes.
myself about the little things. And
Yes.
especially the pause needed to connect about the big things. But yeah, there's just
Totally.
so many opportunities to practice that and build up and build it up
All day, every
all
day.
day, all
Well,
night.
yeah. And I feel like too, like having the group chat, the Telegram group, and having a space where you could like literally voice memo and hear yourself speak and say what was on your heart, even if it was like maybe not what other people would expect from you. You could be vulnerable. And that in itself was practice for you, taking that pause and hearing yourself and then voicing it out.
Oh, I know. That was so, yeah, it was interesting having the structure of the PMC being a group and having the coaching being a group. And that was something that was vulnerable because being a recovering perfectionist, I yeah, just didn't
Yeah.
feel, and yeah, but also it was like very meaningful and good practice. So right, it was all the things.
Yes. Yeah. And it's meant to be that way, right? Like it's designed that way because as women, we tend to be islands. We're like, oh, I can't let anyone see my shit, you know? And so when you have a safe space where you can talk about anything and everything, it suddenly gives you that courage, that confidence to speak for you. So, okay, I would love to hear like you all led yourself in your own growth. And I know you've both have invested in other ways. You've, self-care and other mentorships and opportunities for you. You have now become women who take care of yourselves, who advocate for your needs and your desires. What would you say to someone who's kind of at the beginning of this journey? Maybe they've never like actually invested in themselves and they're considering either the PMC or something like this as a first step. What do you wish you would have heard back in the beginning when you were trying to make your decision?
I knew that it's what I needed. And I know we can get in our own ways a lot. And especially as women, like Gina was talking about, we turn down the volume. We don't listen to what we need. And I think if you take that step back and say, ask yourself, like I like just asking myself what I need. Like, what do I need right now? And actually listening to the answer. Like, it's probably not another latte. It might not be a manicure. Like, those things are wonderful, but what do I need? And that's what I did before coaching with you. I said, what do I need? I felt like I had done what I could do on my own. And I knew that I was at the point where I needed to let someone else in. And I needed the support of other women who were moms and in a similar position. And you who was steps ahead of me on this journey to guide me through it. So I think my advice would be to ask yourself what you need and genuinely listen to the answer. And if the answer is that you have done what you can do on your own, let someone else in. Let those other women hold you. Let yourself be guided by someone else and be open to that experience.
Oh, that is so good. And it's so true, right? Because we tend to get in that belief of like, I should be able to do this all. I should be able to figure it out. And there just becomes a point where you're like, you know what? I don't want to do this alone anymore. I don't. I want to feel supported and I actually get to feel supported. Like I'm worthy of having that support. So I love, 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 love that was your experience, Tricia, of giving that to yourself. What about you, Gina?
Well, I would also agree with Tricia's advice, right? Just like, yeah, just quieting the mind and turning inwards and yeah, and being honest about the things that might feel like they're holding you back. Um, and challenging those of like, well, what if I did do the PMC um, or, whatever other things are being considered. But, you know, I do think that like things unfold in their needed time. And so everything's going to be fine and there's going to be future opportunities. But I know for someone that like sat there thinking like, okay, should I do it now? Okay, another 6 months. Okay, should I do it now? Should I do it now? And I was like, oh, but the price is little. Yeah, like I think I would have benefited from doing it before I was ready. And that like excitement that it's like, oh, are we really going to do this? Am I really going to do this? Okay, we're just boom, we're going to do this. Like, yeah, I think that at the point that I started working with you, I kind of needed to like go through those like couple years of just like, all right, okay. Yeah, I would invite anyone that's on the fence that like knows this is what they want to do with it. Like, yeah, now is the time. What are we waiting for? Because like, I just see how like women just deserve to be uplifted and supported and empowered and to like live a life that they love. And it's like, it just feels like every day matters, like, especially when you're in like that young motherhood season or even any other season, like this is just such a good option to catalyze the journey, right? Like people can get from point A to point B in all these different ways. But yeah, this just is a powerful vehicle to, warp speed through some things with that like loving support, with that like kick in the bottom when you need it. Cause like, right, we need both of those things. And so if you sign up, you'll get the whole spectrum.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I loved what you said about like start before you're ready, because every investment I have made in myself, I wasn't ready to make that. I was so scared, right? Like it's scary to try something new, whether or not there's money on the table, because we're investing our time, our energy, we're putting ourselves out there. And typically that's the exact thing that we need. But your brain's going to always try to argue with you and tell you like, oh, it's not the right time, or I should wait. But like you said, Gina, I think especially for us women who are mothers, this time is this time, and it passes, and it's going to pass, and we will get through it no matter what. But what is the experience that you want to have of it?
I had another thought, if I can add.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as Gina was talking, and like what you just said too, like we are fine on our own. Like we can trust where we are and what we're doing. But we can also be open to the possibility of there just being so much more for us and us being so much more. And I think when you are in a space like the PMC with all of the work that you do in that group and the love and support of everyone in there, you kind of shift into just feeling held and loved, and what you can do from that space is infinite. And yes, you'd be fine on your own, and absolutely can trust being in that space, but you can do so much more and become so much more than you would even be able to dream of from that space of being held and loved and supported. Like I just think that the possibility of growth is just so much more than I had like even dreamed would be possible.
Oh my gosh, it makes me so happy to hear that. And like, I have nothing else to add, because you ladies so beautifully just described this experience, and you have walked it. You committed to yourselves, and now you're in a different stage. You're in a different season. And I would love for you to share how all of the women who are listening here can find and connect with you, because part of this community that we're in is about us supporting one another in the PMC, outside the PMC. It doesn't really matter. I know, like, we started before we hit record, I realized I had to actually introduce Gina and Tricia, because I just assumed, that they knew each other, because what comes out of these groups in this community is lifelong friendships. And I love hearing, I'll get like messages from different women like, hey, I talked to so-and-so and she's doing this, and we're collaborating here, and we're supporting each other on this. And it's like, you just don't know what this will create for you, but it's always such good things. So all that to say, how can the mamas listening to this connect with both of you?
I'm on Instagram, just at Tricia Pickren. So you can find me there.
And what are you, Tricia, tell us a little bit about your business.
Oh, I am a Reiki master and I offer an energetic mentorship. So it is mentoring combined with energy work that is just such a really powerful, transformational space. That's what I'm doing.
Yes. And you are so damn good at it. And her content on Instagram will give you such a well of just peace and calm. And she's definitely worth following and connecting with. And Gina, what about you? Like, you started a business.
Yeah, so I had a soft start to my new business this summer of doing photography and copywriting and copy editing for female entrepreneurs. So I feel so called to uplift and empower women in business, and and doing that through the power of words and photography and messaging. So that's been a really exciting shift. And
Yes.
what's different about this business, since I had my own business for quite a long time, is I'm, kind of giving myself permission to slowly grow it and, have a number of regular clients here in town in Madison. And and I'm working on my website, and, the website rollout has been delayed a few months with like illness and all.
Totally. Yes. Real life.
And just trying to be grateful and joyful and laugh along the way at
Yes.
because I feel like the women that I'm working with understand that they have boundaries and I have boundaries, and it's been a beautiful jump into the trust of like there is a niche of people that I want to work with that that are mission driven and value driven. And and so sometimes things, it doesn't need to be like all the masculine energy of like pushing forward to like get everything done in a day. Like, it's like this slow, steady growth for my business. And that's also what I offer people, in our process of working together of, just pausing and getting clear on the whys and the values, and, and having that contained space before we jump into the photo shoot, before we jump into, the branding voice and the things that they want to say in their business. So I do have an Instagram handle at Amplify Your Heart Path. Although I'm yet to do my first post, but
yeah. Still go follow Gina. I'm going to put all of this in the show notes. And I do have to just say, like, I've seen some of the work you've done, copywriting and photography for another one of the women in this community. And you are an expert at what you do. Like, the gift is so there. And I cannot wait to see what you do with your business in your timing on your terms. It's going to be beautiful.
Well, and also that's a funny thing too, that kind of transpired with having people call in in the PMC from like different parts of the country. You just don't know if you'll ever meet them in person or like what that relationship will look like. But it was fun because, being here in Wisconsin, Kate drove through, and so I got to meet her. And then this other woman, Stephanie Mello, who does, great coaching and mentoring and homeschooling and birth and postpartum magic. She is out west in Arizona, but then she was coming through, and so we got to do a photo shoot while she was here. And so I also love seeing, like, we live in this cyber world, we're recording this.
Yeah.
And then things happen and things connect and worlds intertwine, and it's fun and beautiful unfolding.
Yes. And you just never know. And so it's like all of these connections coming to fruition, like us getting to meet in person. Tricia and I still, like, we've got to make that happen. We both have 5-year-old boys who I think are just BFFs in the making. But this is the beauty of a community like this, is that, we get to meet, we get to connect and support and uplift one another. So I am just beyond grateful that you two, showed up for this. You gave your time, you shared your heart and your story, because I know how supportive it's going to be for another woman who is listening to this episode and needed to hear these messages, whatever combination it was for her. I know that it's just going to be so impactful. So thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you absolutely loved this episode, that it inspired you, and that you are feeling so lit up by what is possible for you, no matter what season of life that you are in. And if you are feeling called to join the Purposeful Moms Club, come on in. We are enrolling for the next round, which starts January 15th, but doors are closing on December 31st to enroll, or when all of the spots fill. So if you have your eye on the Purposeful Moms Club, highly recommend that you do not delay, because this group always sells out. And you have the choice of either booking a call with me if you want to just get some questions answered and make sure that it's a good fit. We can totally do that. I'm doing free 30-minute calls, and there's definitely one with your name on it. Or if you know that you are in and that this is the next step for you and you want to make sure that you have that spot, you can go ahead and enroll right away. Head to purposefulmomsclub.com to find all of the details about what to expect in the next round. You can also book your call there, or you can simply sign up if you're just feeling super excited and you're ready to go. Either way, cannot wait to see you in the next round. Women are already signing up, and I can just tell that this next group is going to create such beautiful change in their lives and homes together. I will see you next time.